Well, Jason, your
Yep.
general thoughts on how today went for you?
No, we're ecstatic, obviously to have Jake a part of our system. Obviously, it's been evident that we've tried to build this organization through the center position. To get a young man like this who has, I think, elite hockey sense. We felt the draft had a lot of good centermen at the very top of the draft. But to get a player of Jake's makeup of hockey sense, two-way play, and then off the ice, a real competitive individual who understands this is just the beginning, and a lot to sort of, understands the development process and how much work has to go into it. So I think myself and the entire staff is very excited to have Jake as a Kraken.
Jason, he's obviously just turned 18
Yep.
in mid-June. Does that factor into how you guys think about his projection and where he can go?
Certainly, and I think in just the discussion with him too, understanding he does have to get stronger. All these kids that were being drafted here this weekend need to get stronger from that standpoint. He understands that, and I think the fact that digging into it, he has the work ethic to put the time not only in on the ice but in the weight room. But yeah, we see there's still a great opportunity for physical growth with him. But his vision on the ice, his interaction with his teammates, being a leader, you'll come to realize with his personality, he's not the most outgoing individual, but he's serious, he's very humble, and I think, as I've touched on before, understands there's work to be done, and I think he is really driven to eventually get there to be a really good player in the National Hockey League.
Jason, obviously the center position has more weight to it and everything, but
Yep.
you played wing in the past too. How much does that versatility kind of factor in with him in case you need to bump him to the edge at some point down the line?
Well, I think it just shows you his hockey sense, his ability to play on any spot on the ice. You see it on his the way he works to even strength, power play, penalty. He can impact the game in a lot of different ways. And what we're trying to accomplish here with Lane is to just give him a lot of players that can play a lot of different positions. You see at the National Hockey League, a player like Jared McCann, so versatile, being able to play center and play wing. We certainly want to develop Jake into a centerman, but we just having that flexibility is certainly an added benefit.
Jason, two things. First of all, can you share with us your last conversation with Jennifer?
Oh no, it was a pretty cool week and stuff for sure, and very proud of her. She's worked extremely hard to earn this recognition, so it's great to see all her hard work being rewarded. But it was a pretty cool environment. The fact that she was back in Manitoba, back at my parents' cottage. Her family was back there visiting. So instead of my parents receiving that phone call, they could actually have the hug and be a part of it right there. It was something pretty special for the entire family.
That's cool. The other one is, have you made a decision about whether Philip Grubauer is going to be remaining with the organization?
Yeah, Philip will be with part of our group here and stuff for sure, and we'll continue to work on different things. Obviously we brought in Colin to be our goalie coach moving forward here. We are going to have different things to work on from that standpoint. We'll continue to look at different ways that we can improve the team in front of them. I think it's one of the things that Lane's talked a lot about as a head coach, and making sure that we play stronger in front of them. And we'll continue to look at different ways to, improve our goaltending position, both with Joey and Philip.
And why did you decide not to buy him out?
Look, it's a situation that people sometimes think that if you buy a player out, it just automatically goes away. There's still a cap hit and stuff from that standpoint. And, we believe that Philip can bounce back from that situation. And we think there's an opportunity still for success here.
Thanks.
Jason, you talked about hockey sense with O'Brien. Some of the scouting reports I read talked about also playmaking. Do you
Yep.
tie those two together, and what's your assessment of his ability to make his teammates better as well?
Yeah, I think they certainly tie in together from that perspective. I think, as was just discussed a little bit too, just his ability to play different positions. I think he just has we can work a lot with him on the physical attributes, on working from that standpoint in the weight room. But to have that hockey sense, to have that creativity, that vision, it's something very difficult to improve on. And the fact that he has that as a starting point is something that certainly drew us to him.
Jason, you did mention that you guys are obviously heavy at the center position and have been drafting that way.
Yep.
Was there any consideration that you would draft more for need, or was it always just best available on the board?
It's pretty much always going to be best available in my mind. unless it's a really unique situation, just simply because we're drafting 18-year-old kids. There's, as excited as we are about these young kids coming into our organization, there is such a lag effect. It's going to take them years to really develop into players. And hey, with trades and how things going on, it's so different compared to the NFL from that perspective. So I think you get into drafting too much for needs, it's a difficult process.
You mentioned that it's been an interesting week and a half, really, on the Kraken side of things with the trades. I mean, what more can you tell us about the moves that you made here over the last week?
No, it's been exciting to add to our throw group. It was something that we wanted to talk about early on, and about adding different pieces to our group. I think adding a player like Mason to the group just improved our net front presence, improved our size up front. Adding a player like Gaudreau just gives us, again, versatility in our sort of bottom six. Player who can play center, play wing, right shot center. Just felt it was a good fit from that perspective. So obviously we've been happy so far with some of the trades. We'll certainly be involved with the free agent market. We'll see how things progress on July 1 from that standpoint. But we did want to make some trades. Just there's certainly some high-end players in the free agent market, but I don't think there's a lot of depth to the free agent market. So we felt the best way to improve our team was through some trades.
Is there still a hope to make kind of a splashier addition, would you say, to the roster?
I think there's 31 other teams that want to make a splashier addition to their roster, and I think you see the other markets. Everyone's trying from that standpoint and stuff for sure. And we'll continue to work on developing our own players internally. We're excited about some of our young players. Excited about a player like Chandler Stevenson being comfortable in this market in his second year. But hey, we continue to have draft capital, continue to have cap space to work on that, and we'll see how it goes.
How different does the landscape on that feel right now, given the flat-ish cap of the last several years, and now everybody's kind of got space and the ability to do things? How different does that feel right now?
Well, I think it's just a situation out there that players or teams are looking for NHL players. Like you're trying to look for different. You've seen some. You saw obviously a big trade from a defenseman today in the marketplace. There's a few other names that are out there from that standpoint, but seems to be a lot of teams looking for NHL trades right now, player for player versus just picks and prospects.
Jason, you mentioned that the being comfortable, and on one hand, I think the players on the team should be excited because they see the front office is upgrading the team, and that's always a boost. At the same time, should this also be a message to the players going into camp that your job isn't necessarily safe because we need you at your best, or some of these new guys may take your spot?
I think obviously where we ended up in the standings, you have to have internal competition, and that's what we've talked about from the get-go, is trying to bring, with some of the trades that we've made, we're bringing in NHL players into the mix, and we will continue to give our younger players plenty of opportunities. And we were excited about some of the players coming in and stepping into the National Hockey League last year at the end of the year. We'll work extremely hard with the kids who will be around here this upcoming week at the development camp. Obviously, it's been discussed about Berkeley Catton. We'll certainly give him an opportunity to see where he can fit in the National Hockey League. And when we talk about development, we always seem to talk about 18, 19-year-olds. In our mind, players like Riker Evans, players like Kako, players like Matty Beniers, these are the players that we are going to continue to work on too, to take a next step even at the National Hockey League level.
Speaking of Berkeley, with the addition of Freddie, some people would look at, well, there's another center on the roster. How do you find a spot for him? Similarly with Neiman, you got a bunch of wingers that are, where do you find a spot for these guys? Kind of how do you kind of speak to their progression, what you're looking like for them in camp, and how do they try to earn a spot for you guys?
Well, one off right at that is, look, there's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be versatility. You look at a lot of our centermen that we have on our roster, they've played wing too. And even with a younger player like Catton, to step into the National Hockey League as a 19-year-old is going to be a challenge. And whether maybe that's at center, maybe that's at wing, it'll be our job, if he's ready, to find a spot for him and find an opportunity probably on one of the special units, power play units and stuff too, from that standpoint. If it's not, then that's probably not a great environment for his development. We'll have to continue to evaluate the situation. But trust me, if our young players are ready to play in the National Hockey League, they'll certainly get the opportunity.
With Veleno, what are the thoughts on how he fits into the picture?
Yeah, it's a situation where, look, we certainly made the trade to open up cap space from that standpoint. We're excited to bring a player of his sort of experience into our organization from a speed standpoint, and we'll continue to look at sort of how our organization fits over the next couple of weeks here.
And how's things going with Kako as far as a restricted free agency and such?
No, I think, look, those discussions are ongoing. We have plenty of time from that standpoint, just like our other RFAs. So eventually we'll certainly get something done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.